invite Dr. Ahmedullah to talk to us about his own food journey.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me to this event. And I'm really happy to share, my experience of living in Newham and experience with food. During the first 6 years of my life in this country, I lived in Plaistow. On the slide, you can see a co-op building that used to be in the corner, of Eastham High Street and Barking Road. And there was a cafe, I don't know, fourth floor or third floor, where we used to often go to have tea and English cakes. This was during the 70s. So basically, what I will do today is talk about food in our house, what kind of food we had, and where we bought the items from, and some of the changes that we experienced, and we sort of developed. And then also talk about fusion, the mixing of different food from my understanding. Right. As I said, I used to live in Plaistow in Stratford Road. So every Saturday, my brother was 3 years older than me. I was 11, 10 and a half, 11 when we first came to this country back in 1973. And my mother would give my brother, money and a list. So we would walk through Harold Road, turn right into Green Street, past the station, and then Queen's Market. So in Queen's Market, we used to buy things like, potatoes and onions and tomatoes, cauliflowers, and also they had some fish stalls, where we used to buy herring. Herring was very popular in our house. For some reason, my mother thought herring tasted a little bit like ilish, the national fish in Bangladesh, right? Yes. So herring was a regular in our house. Then after we buying the vegetables and the fish and the onions, we would walk across Green Street, past Plashett Road, Plashett Grove, and a bit further up, there used to be a halal meat shop. So we used to buy some lamb and some chicken, and then come back to Plashett Road, and into Plashett Road. Soon on the right, there used to be one shop. It was a Gujarati shop. They used to sell, rice and dal and spices and so on. So some items we used to buy from there. Then walk again a bit further, and Nagrecha was on the left. And then we'd stop in Nagrecha to buy more stuff. And then by that time, me and my older brother, we got all the stuff. It was so heavy, but we still kind of walked home. I don't remember exactly, what we used to buy from Nagrecha and Rana and Son, the other one. But my mom said those shop, we used to buy like dal and rice and spices and things like that. But where we lived in Plaistow, just next door on the left, we had a shop owned by a Sikh family, Singhs, and they used to live upstairs and at the back. It was a convenience store. So, but we also used to get chili and garlic and things like that, from that shop, and bay leaves, tezpata and things like that. And on the right, we had a convenient store, confectionery, owned by an English guy. So we used to buy, chocolate and crisps and milk from there. So you can see that that's the confectionery, the English-owned confectionery. And on the other side, opposite, a little bit further, this picture of the pub that used to be. So our house used to be just in between. Now, home food cooking, right? Not everything was available, those days. The food that we were used to in Bangladesh, we couldn't find them. And we used to eat a lot of English vegetables. In Bangladesh, we used to get cauliflowers and cabbages and things like that. But we never had carrots and, broccoli and things like that back in Bangladesh. We couldn't get like Bangladeshi fish, and Bangladeshi vegetables anywhere those days. The first time we encountered fish and chips is when my older brother went to Eastleigh School. And he used to come back and tell us how good fish and chips tasted. And he used to talk about every day, him and his friends eat fish and chips, every lunchtime. So one day he brought home, you see, bread, we were used to bread in Bangladesh, but they were different kind of bread. I used to have bread with butter and sugar, you know. I was really enjoying back in Bangladesh. But when you came here, you know, those loaf of bread you had to cut by your knife, they tasted so nice, you know, with butter and with sugar. But also, if you mixed with milk, you know, like your cornflakes. But what happened soon, my father discovered from somewhere that bread contained lard, you know, lard, which is a pork product. So then we stopped eating bread in our house, worried that we might be eating pig by mistake. So my father bought a cooking book, and my mother, from the cooking book, she learned to bake bread and make cakes. So she used to make regular, you know, she used to make a lot of bread and keep them in the fridge and so on, so that we can eat every day. And so she also learned how to bake cakes. So this was like probably in 1975 or something like that. And one day, probably around 75 or 76, we got a knock on our house. A Bangladeshi guy, he was looking for other addresses where Bangladeshis live. He brought some fish and some vegetables from Bangladesh, a special order, and he was just looking for people who might buy his stuff. So then my dad said, "What have you got?" And then for the first time, we had Bangladeshi fish and some Bangladeshi vegetables. The Bangladeshis love dried fish. We call it shutki or hutki, right? Now it smells so strong. Some people love it and some people just hate it. They can't stand it. But in our house, except my older brother, everybody else used to love it. But we couldn't get dried fish in this country. So what my mother used to do, she used to cut fish into small pieces and just leave them on the grill. You know, the old gas cooker had this top bit where you can grill things. So she used to leave them there. And over a couple of days, they used to dry, become a little bit like the dried fish that we were used to. So they did taste nice, but obviously it wasn't like the authentic one they used to go in Bangladesh. But they were good enough for us to enjoy the dried fish that what we used to enjoy before. Now, what my mother also did, she started to use the grill and the oven to make curries. You know, so basically she would mix chops, lamb chops with onions, and you know all the ingredients that you put in a curry, and also in chicken, and she used to cook them in oven. What we realized is cooking, you know, curry stuff in oven and grill was so much tastier than even normal curries. You know, our next door neighbor, the Sikh family, we used to buy a lot of things from them, small items. Now they also introduced salmon heads and salmon bones, you know, into our house. And obviously they were cheap. But when my mother first cooked fried, you know, salmon bones, and they were incredibly tasty. It was a little bit crispy the way she cooked, and we couldn't get enough of them. You know, it was so lovely. But the first restaurant I knew of was called Gulberg. That was in Plashet Grove. As you just turn from Green Street into Plashet Grove, it was on the left. And the first building was on the corner was Wimpy. And then later on it became Kebabish. You can see Kebabish. So you just turn on the right, and on the left used to be Gulberg. So in Gulberg, you could get kebabs, you know, and lamb curries and things like that. And chanas, you know, Pakistani style cooking. Kebab roll, you know, kebab roll in a naan. And it was very, very tasty, you know, different from Bangladeshi food that we were used to. But when we tasted first Pakistani food, they tasted quite nice. One of my friends, he wanted to treat me for his birthday. So he took me to Ronok's restaurant, a Gujarati one, where I had my first masala dosa. Now, Chinese food was very popular those days. A lot of Asian people, they used to take away Chinese food, but I don't think they used to take them home because their families probably didn't like them. So chicken chow mein, plain chow mein, and chicken fried rice. And so there were several Chinese restaurants, and one was in Green Street where we often went. Now, how fusion happened, right? Yeah, is through new experiences. Now, when we came to this country, we met a lot of Gujarati people that came from East Africa. There were some from India. There were quite a few Tamil and Malayali people, but they were mainly from Singapore. And then we had Punjabi Sikhs and Punjabi Pakistani. And in Newham, there were very few Bengalis, Bangladeshi. I worked in a Pakistani sweet factory, after school in Plashet Road. So that's where I learned. I didn't actually gain the skill, but I saw how they made burfis and halwas, and things like that. How we got introduced to Western food was through school dinner. Green Street, there used to be Wimpy in East Ham, McDonald's in East Ham, and Burger King in Upton Park. There were many cafes around, a lot of them were owned by Mediterranean people like Greeks and so on. Swimming pool canteens, and college canteens and fish and chip shops, and obviously Chinese shop. So through this, we got introduced to, eating English food, Western food. So through this process, gradually the fusion came, developed taste. But at home, people were still, my mom, they were still cooking, the traditional food. The restaurant that you can see where my friends are eating and me at the top, it's the restaurant in Upton Park now. It's a Gujarati one. It's vegetarian, corner of Neville Road and Green Street. It used to be a very tiny cafe, used to be where we used to stand and order bel puri, right? But now, so I also had food in a friend's house, from South India, from Punjab, Pakistani and Sikh and Gujarati. And I used to also take sometimes food from my house, what my mom used to make and friends used to like. This photo that you can see we're eating belonged to, this was one of our Sikh friend, we used to often go to his house. And his mother used to immediately start giving us dal and rice, and not rice, sorry, chapati, right? And dal. In the dal, they always used to put, lumps of butter, but they were very tasty. And so these are like some of my friends used to eat around one of our Sikh friends' house. That's it, I think, right? Yeah, I just went through this quickly because there wasn't enough time.
Thank you very much, Mohammed, for a fabulous chat.